Lightyear is Pixar's newest film, and it's their first film since Onward in 2020 to be released in theaters. So they need a pretty good movie to return to theaters. And while Lightyear isn't a masterpiece like many of Pixar's films, it is a pretty good return to theaters, in my opinion. This movie's got a lot of positives, but it also has its fair share of negatives. I'm going to be breaking it all down in this review. Now we need to get this out of the way. The animation. The animation in here is stunning. Probably Pixar's best looking film, and that's saying something because Soul looked pretty much like real life. This movie, I'm just going to say it, it looks real. There were moments in here that I forgot that I was watching an animated movie, and I thought that I was watching a live action movie. In fact, I'd even go as far as to say that I think that this movie looks better than some live action movies. It is that good. I highly recommend you see this in theaters if it's still playing near you, just for the animation, because you cannot get the same effect of the animation unless you see it on the big screen. The characters in here are great. They are pretty much the heart and soul of this movie. Let's start off with Buzz. I like Buzz in the Toy Story movies. He's not my favorite character in those movies, but I did like him, and it was always a bit of a shame whenever he got sidelined. But in here, he is front and center, and it was super refreshing to see him in the spotlight. Buzz's sidekicks are also really good. I like how Alicia and Izzy don't feel like forced female empowerment characters. Hollywood has been trying to shove a bunch of diversity down our throats without it being there for a purpose, but Izzy and Alicia serve a really big purpose in the story, and it makes their female empowerment all the more better. Mo was super funny, and while his character isn't the best written in terms of motives and character arcs, he makes up for it in terms of charm and humor. The only character I wasn't a huge fan of was Darby. It's not like she was terrible, but she just was really sidelined in here, and the moments that she does get her time to shine aren't that strong. Now, I saved the best character for last, and that is Socks. I don't care what you say, he's the best character, and probably my favorite animated character in a kids movie in recent years. He's super adorable, and even though I don't buy plushes or stuff like that anymore, I want a Socks plush. I think the best part about him is that he's a robot, but he also acts incredibly realistic to a cat. For example, there's this part where he's talking to Buzz and he's just rubbing up against his leg. That's just one of the many good moments he has in here. He is also very funny, and he was by far the character that got the most laughs out of the theater. I said this with Jurassic World Dominion, and I'm going to say it again, but I cannot talk about this movie without talking about the score, because the score in here is phenomenal. Michael Giacchino is easily one of the best composers of all time, and this score does not disappoint in the slightest. He truly feels like you're watching something epic, as a score like this should. And there was one moment in particular where the score was so good and so awesome that it literally gave me chills all over my body. So yeah, Michael Giacchino has had a great winning streak recently, and I don't expect that to change anytime soon. And of course, this is a Pixar movie, so they're obviously going to try and make you cry. But the question is, did it work? Yes, it did. There was one moment in here that caught me really off guard, and it really made me cry. And I'm not the easiest crier, but this movie just made me and my friend cry. Now, before we move on to the negatives, I just want to mention something real quick, and that is the LGBTQ representation in here. It's caused quite a bit of controversy, and it ended up getting this movie banned in a bunch of countries. It's not like a key plot detail in this movie, but there are two scenes where they really focus on it, and that was pretty cool to see. I'm glad that Disney took this risk, even though they knew the potential outcomes, and it's just really cool to see some LGBTQ representation in a movie like this. Now let's get on to the negatives. This movie has a lot of pop culture references, and at first I was like, oh, they're cool and everything, but it soon got really tedious really fast. The movie feels like less than the sum of its parts. I know that this isn't supposed to be like an epic space sci-fi adventure. It's just a little kids movie, but they did set up something really interesting in the first act, and unfortunately the second and third act don't do much with it, and they just kind of restrain it to a fun, normal kids movie. And my biggest problem with this movie is that it moves too fast. Now, normally a fast runtime is good. Mostly a movie is good if you don't feel the runtime, and I didn't with this movie. It also moved so fast that it felt like it was undermining the main plot. By the time the credits hit, I was just kind of like, that's it? And in the long run, the runtime causes this movie to feel as if it didn't have as big of an impact as it should have had. But overall, Lightyear fun kids movie. It's better than half of the kids movies that studios are putting out nowadays. And while it does have some problems and it's not groundbreaking by any means, it's just here for you to have a fun movie night with the family. It does its job pretty well. So for an overall rating, I'm giving Lightyear a 7 out of 10. Guys, thanks so much for watching. I'll have more reviews for you very soon. You can also follow me on my social medias. I will have those linked in the description. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye. It's electric. I'm lost in your eyes.